It is the third edition of the Battle of Florida in the postseason. Today, we will be crossing it over with the host of Locked On Lightning, Adam Denker, to discuss all the biggest storylines, the players to watch, and our predictions for this series.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Tampa Bay Lightning podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making both of our Locked On podcasts your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side and is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now on the App Store or Google Play. For everybody on the Tampa Bay Lightning feed, let me introduce myself. My name is Armando Velez, the host of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and from the Hockey News too. You can catch all my work there at thehockeynews.com/Florida. And very thankful to be doing this crossover edition prior to the third edition of the Battle of Florida in the postseason. The host of Locked On Lightning, Mr. Adam Denker. Adam, it's great to be getting together with you once again. And even though, you know, with hockey and all that stuff, I'm glad to be doing this with you. And even though we're not supposed to be friends as far as the hockey side of things, glad to call you a friend and once again to do another crossover, dude.
Yeah, absolutely, Armando. I mean, I think that's probably what makes us very good friends here on Locked On Locked On NHL is that this rivalry that we have through our interstate teams. And man, glad to have another playoff series. And, you know, the way these two teams have played and are getting better every year, I think this is our second time, but it's definitely not going to be the last one.
Oh, yeah. And just the expectation of whether we thought we were going to be here in the first place, of thinking that after the Florida Panthers lost to the Boston Bruins on April 6th, thinking, okay, prepare for Florida, Toronto, and Tampa Bay was going to prepare for Boston. But look what happened in the last 48 hours of the season as far as Monday and Tuesday too. And here we are, another Battle of Florida, the third edition of this for the Cats and the Bolts. So let's just get this right off the bat as far as what the biggest storylines for each team coming in. And let's start with you. What are the biggest storylines for the Tampa Bay Lightning going into this playoff series?
Well, obviously, one of the biggest storylines for the Lightning coming into the series as well has been one of the biggest storylines across the NHL has been Nikita Kucherov, his record-breaking, at least for the Lightning franchise record in assists this year. He eclipsed 100 assists, making him only the fifth player ever to do it, alongside Connor McDavid doing it probably, I think, a couple of days before. And that's the big one right there. How much of a factor he's going to be in this series. I'm sure all you guys on the Florida side are going to have eyeballs on him every single time he has the puck and how effective he could be and how much of a tight clamp you guys are going to be able to put down on him. And then really for the Lightning side as well, what goes hand in hand with that storyline has really been, you know, who's going to be able to step up on the Lightning side. Obviously, Kucherov, as amazing as he has been all year, you got to have a supporting cast. So if the other guys like Braden Point, the Nick Paul, Steven Stamkos, Brandon Hagel, if those guys could step up and be effective, that is really going to help the Lightning in the long run in this series.
Yeah, and what a season that Nikita Kucherov has had. And you said fourth player to have 100 assists and first winger to get to 100 assists. The other ones are centers as far as that. I remember Jonathan Huberdeau when he was with the Panthers. He almost broke Nikita Kucherov's assist record before he was a healthy scratch for the last two games in 2022 due to rest and just trying to be rested for the postseason too. So just incredible feat that Nikita Kucherov is there, and him along with Nathan MacKinnon, Connor McDavid are going to be have battled for the ballots, and actually ballots for the Hart Trophy are due today by the Professional Hockey Writers Association. So we won't know until after the postseason if he does in fact bring the Hart, but he's definitely in the conversation there for the league and for his second Hart Trophy. Crazy how we are a few years removed from that 2019 Hart Trophy season by Kucherov in a contract year for him. But for the Florida Panthers, as far as the biggest storylines for them, as far as going into the season, has how they got to the division championship too, with all the injuries that they faced early on with Montour and Ekblad not coming back until mid November. They were coming off the Stanley Cup final run where Matthew Tkachuk broke his sternum and all, and even got up to a pretty sluggish start going into the season. I mean, he didn't really start to explode until the turn of the new year in 2024, where he was the leading point getter for a good portion of that start of the calendar year too. And the Panthers were starting, once Ekblad and Montour came back, they had a hard time scoring too, as far as that. But the Panthers, as far as them, they learned from their losses. I mean, 2022, they made the coaching change. They traded for Matthew Tkachuk after getting swept by Tampa Bay, losing in the Stanley Cup final in 5 games to Vegas. Their mission was to get bigger, and because even though they had dealt with a lot of injuries by the time they got to the final, they wanted to get guys who would get in front, block shots, and would fight that and not have a size advantage too for them. And really, in the 2022 series, I feel like that Vasilevsky didn't really beat the Panthers too. It was really the shot blockers for the Lightning that really beat them as far as getting pucks to the net, which the Florida Panthers had a hard time doing. And now for the Panthers, they have really changed their style since that series, which feels like such a long time ago for them now. And just it's different when it comes to this team as far as that. And really, Sam Reinhart, gotta credit to him. Yeah, he's in the contract year. We spoke about Kucherov's contract year a few years ago. 57 goals on the power play, 57 goals, and almost 30 of them on the man advantage. He hasn't scored a power play goal in 14 games. But that has really been the key for the Panthers and how they've fared this season. I mean, him and Barkov are on the same line too, as far as 5-on-5, which you have 2 Selke Trophy caliber players in them as far as like, and the fact that home ice, even though this is their 3rd time having home ice and they didn't win the previous 2 times, as far as their style of play, it's the Panthers really feel that they're better equipped, even though on the Tampa Bay Lightning side of things, Anthony Cirelli is one who John Cooper, when they get that last change, when it shifts to Tampa, it's gonna be interesting to see like who John Cooper puts that Cirelli's line up against as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing I think that a lot of people don't realize about this Florida Lightning series is just the amount of weapons that each team really has. And I have to say, and this might sound crazy maybe to some Panthers fans, I was really hoping we were going to get you in the first round over the Bruins, just because of the travel up to Boston would have been killer for the Lightning as opposed to just going south. But yeah, that's the thing. I think the thing that really stands out to me with when I'm thinking about the Florida Panthers and the opposition and really what kind of challenges they present is just the maturity level from, like you mentioned, that playoff series a couple of years ago. You guys are just a completely different team. And that's the thing that really sticks out to me. You know, it's not that kind of deer in the headlights feeling that we kind of saw a couple of years ago. This year, you know, if something doesn't go your way in the first couple of games or whatever, or we're getting a spectacular performance from Vasilevsky or we're blocking shots, you know, it's not this team's going to lay down and give up kind of mentality. It's going to be like, when are they going to be able to break through and again, be able to challenge us? So I think that's really the thing that really pops out to me with this Florida Panthers team. And I forgot to mention the other player real quick that I'm looking forward to contributions from that has really got me excited, Armando, is your old guy, Anthony Duclair, who I'm sure is going to be looking for a little bit of revenge here this series, considering, you know, he wasn't re-signed. He ended up going to San Jose in the offseason. But I have to say thank you for not re-signing him, because the addition of Anthony Duclair on that first line has worked out as perfect as you could possibly imagine. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that trade for Anthony Duclair to the San Jose Sharks for Steven Lawrence and a 5th, that helped the Panthers sign Evan Rodriguez to a deal along with some term as far as what's fitting for the style of play, as far as Anthony Duclair being more of a speedster versus what the Panthers style of play is not really generating goals off the rush. So they know that they needed a change as far as that, and Duclair has played so well since being traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning. As far as that with the trade from, it's just unfortunate because he's a fan favorite here now that he's on the other side. So there's no friends when it comes to a playoff series on the ice, regardless of whether you have history with them or not. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to discuss more about key players to watch, and who are Adam's key players to watch and who are my key players to watch too on the Panthers side of things. We're going to discuss that more here on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about Policy Genius. And Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace, and it saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help you talk through it. Talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step. Your work-life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, it might not come with you if you leave your job. Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice for a licensed expert support team. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest storylines without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Back on this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Tampa Bay Lightning podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And once again, thankful to be doing this crossover with the host of Locked On Lightning, Adam Denker. Also, not only are we rivals in hockey, but we are also rivals in baseball with Adam being a Mets fan. Unfortunately, I have nothing to say as far as my team, the Marlins, who are 4-15 entering today's play. So another wrinkle in this friendship that we have here for in the Locked On NHL channel. But Adam, as far as matchups and players to watch for the Tampa Bay Lightning, I know you mentioned Duclair right before we went to our first ad break for here, but outside of him, who are your other players to watch as far as the Lightning in this series?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't start off by mentioning Andrei Vasilevskiy. He has really come along in the last couple of weeks or so, really since the mid mark of March. All season, we've kind of been waiting for him to kind of turn up to another gear all year, really up until that. It's really been kind of average goaltending from Vasilevskiy in net, but mid-March, he beats Boston, he beats Vegas, he beats you guys, he beats the Flyers, and you start to see him evolve into what really that great goaltender that we are used to seeing here in Tampa Bay. And I even said it on my show, we haven't seen him play like this since either of the cup runs. You could pick one or the other. I mean, that's how good he has really been in some spots. He's faltered a little bit over the last couple of games. He did not play that last game of the season against Toronto, but overall he has been phenomenal. And really in the playoffs, you can't expect the Lightning to advance any further past any opponent, whether it be the Panthers or whomever else, if Andrei Vasilevskiy isn't playing well. And really, we've had kind of this mantra here on Locked On Lightning all season, really, where in years past, the Lightning have been able to lean on Vasilevskiy, where now this year we needed them to have Vasilevskiy lean on them. But now all bets are off. The playoffs are going to be coming fast and furious on Sunday, and really they're going to have to help each other out. It's really going to have to be it's going to have to be a really give and take relationship now between Vasilevskiy and his teammates. The other player that I'm really looking at, that I'm really hoping that continues playing well, is Steven Stamkos. Another 40-goal season for him. Just when you think that maybe he's going to hit this hump in his career, I mean, we all know the injuries that he has had over the course of his career, where he is in his early 30s, but sometimes you kind of look at him and think that maybe he's in his early 40s. But the guy does not slow down. And the thing that has really changed for him this year as opposed to years past is he's scoring from everywhere. You know, he's not just taking that shot from that left circle position that we all kind of have know that he's fallen in love with, but now he's shooting from down low, from up top on the high slot area. He's all over the place. He's doing it all. He's cleaning up in front. And it really goes back to that two-headed, really three-headed monster on the first line of Nikita Kucherov, Anthony Duclair, and Braden Point. And all three of those guys, I mean, we already talked about Cooch, we already talked about Duclair, but Point has had another phenomenal season coming off a 50-goal season last year. Really, when all those guys that I have mentioned are playing well and playing freely and just reacting on every sequence instead of just having these pre-planned plays written out beforehand, it really adds a whole nother dimension to this team, and it really opens everything up to the lower six. So I'm really excited for those guys to get going, and if those guys could get going, I mean, really, there's no ceiling as to how far this team can go.
Yeah, and I said it on a show earlier that to not let the -21 plus minus fool you as far as like what he can do and how it can be turned on at any moment for Stamkos. And also that you spoke about mid-March for Vasilevsky and how he turned it on. That included when they got out to a 4-0 start against the Panthers, and then the Panthers still tilted the ice too, and still made it a game a little bit, but it was too little too late, as that was Mikkola and Montour's some of their worst games of the season back on, I believe it was March 16th, back in Sunrise. So 3 matchups for the Panthers. The Panthers going 2-1-0, 2-1-0 in those games, winning 2 of them in Tampa for them. But even it's crazy because in the regular season, Panthers have fared really well on the road in Tampa since that 2022 series. But as far as the players to watch for me as far as the Panthers, I think it's Anton Lundell's a big one. He started to get going last year during the final, during the second round, and a little bit before that. Eetu Luostarinen was one of them. Had a big goal in Game 6 against the Bruins too, and also some of the guys who not necessarily produce points, but also provide that sandpaper in a Sam Bennett. He has a 20-goal season this year. How he battles along on different parts of the ice, back checking. Matthew Tkachuk, as far as the power play, he's now on a different parts of the ice now. He's not just down low now for the Panthers. He's bringing the puck up the right circle too, maybe even on top at times, which his shots per game are lower, which is why you see the point production go, which Matthew Tkachuk spoke about. Even if my points are down, if I'm developing my defensive game and that's improving, that's what matters. And the Panthers have really put that emphasis on defense and trying to protect the goaltender. We spoke about Reinhart and Barkov on the same line as far as like a big defensive line for them, but also what Matthew Tkachuk's game has brought and the toughness that comes along with Sam Bennett too. And Carter Verhaeghe played a regular season game coming back from injury right before the postseason, so he's fresh. 34 goals on the season for him, and so that's going to be key for them. Also for the Panthers, what's it going to be like when the bottom part of the lineup goes against the other, as far as Ulrich Ekman Larsson, Dmitry Kulikov, 2 veterans, which is the great thing once again about the veterans that the Panthers brought. How are they the fact that they're doing what they're doing in limited minutes is really key for the Panthers, as far as, and it's no secret that with the cup run that Tampa Bay has had, they don't have the Palots anymore. They don't have the Killorns anymore. Barclay Gaudreau's, you name it as far as that. So I'm really interested to see how that looks as far as matchups, especially once again with the last change.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point about the Lightning's depth. You know, that has been something that has been really talked about this year a lot, and especially last year. But really, Nick Paul has really done a phenomenal job of kind of shutting down those doubters and really taking charge of that third line. You know, we've seen many iterations of this bottom 6 over probably the last year. But this third line of Eyssimont, Paul, and Chaffee is as good as that line has been all season long. The bottom, the fourth line is going to be interesting to see how they could react in those situations that you spoke about. Tanner Janot, Connor Sheary, Austin Watson. It is no secret that Lightning fans are not happy about the multi-year deal that Connor Sheary got coming into this year, and he has really not produced. He has gone through his phases where really he is scoring from anywhere and has really looked like the Connor Sheary of old when he was back in Pittsburgh. But really, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, especially in those tight situations, when Cooper does decide to have them on the ice, what kind of version of that fourth line we're going to get. But really, if I had to predict, I would think that we're going to see really more of the third line and Paul and Chafee and Esamont, just those guys who not only could put up points here and there, but could also really just grind the hell out of you in the tough spots. So that's going to be interesting to see from the Lightning perspective how Florida is going to be able to handle that as well.
Yeah, and with also these two teams just being battle tested and all, and just making their cup finals, even with new guys, they want to be part of something bigger as far as that. And the core guys are definitely talking to them as far as like what the style of play, what they do here, and how they communicate on the ice. And that really that culture that both these teams do have is really impactful as far as like even the bottom guys. And that's why these two teams, they get a lot of guys to sign for cheap, even if it's like one year deals for them as far as that for both teams. So these two teams are very similarly built, and that's what really makes this rivalry so great as far as that for both of them. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss more about X factors. We're going to discuss if the Lightning will win the series if blank, and same thing with the Panthers. They will win this series if blank. We're going to discuss and give our series predictions. We're going to discuss that and more here on this crossover edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Lightning. But Adam, first tell us all about Monopoly Go.
All right, Armando, we've been working together for a couple of years now. So you know that I am a very competitive person. I think that's no secret. And I have a competitive side. We all do, Armando. And my competitive side is also a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I could charge them rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly, and the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's just not my competitive side that loves it. You could team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play.
Third and final segment here on this crossover edition between the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Tampa Bay Lightning podcast. Thank you once again for making both of our podcasts your first listen of the day. So not only are we competitive as far as Monopoly, but we are competitive ourselves with just the banter back and forth from our show accounts. So also follow both of our show accounts, as we will be sharing some dank memes as far as that throughout the series. It's all in good fun, regardless of result. For that when it comes to that. So I want to ask you, Adam, the Tampa Bay Lightning will win this series if blank.
Andre Vasilevsky of old shows up, and that's really what it comes down to. You know, all we need, and I've spoken about this really since we knew we were playing each other on my show, that even if we get 75% of what we have seen from this team over the last couple of weeks, if Vasilevsky comes into this series and turns it up to 11, like we have seen in 2021, you could even say 22, even though they lost that year in the Stanley Cup final. If you see that version of Vasilevsky, I mean, there's no telling, you know, I don't see a scenario, even though I do think the Panthers are a very good team and we Lightning fans highly respect how good you guys are. You get that version of 88. I mean, who else could get past that? I mean, there's very few players, very few teams in the league that could beat that Vasilevsky in a best of 7. And the other one too is, you know, like we've said in years past with every other team, you got to get the series done quickly. So even if the Lightning get off to a slow start and they turn it on, they're only getting better as the series goes on. So really, the ball's in your court for the Florida Panthers to get this series done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's the further it gets, I know for a fact the more nervous I would be as far as that for both of these teams. But hey, it happened with the Boston series, going on the road in a Game 7, and that was the biggest adrenaline rush that I've experienced in the last few years as far as watching sports. I mean, I haven't really had much to cheer for as far as years prior with all my teams, but when it comes to the Florida Panthers, it really comes down to the amount. What can you get in the slot? Can you pressure Vasilevsky to make him get him under duress, to get those high danger opportunities for the Panthers too? That's really what it comes down to, because the stats show that high danger chances for the Lightning have been really high this year. Obviously, there's a big this is the regular season and the postseason are tales of two different seasons, and Vasilevsky is the NHL version of Patrick Mahomes. You don't not necessarily coasting. I don't necessarily believe that players coast, but when there's a certain time of the postseason that the other can turn it on. I'm not necessarily worried about Bobrovsky and the system in place. I think that defensively they're able to really block shots and their penalty, and also another key, can your penalty kill get to the same level, especially on the road, because their road penalty kill was the best in the NHL. Obviously, there's going to be a maximum of 3 games at Emily Arena, so that's really what's going to be telling for them if they can carry over that road penalty kill to the postseason, because the Panthers are going to commit penalties. I spoke about it earlier today, how you're not Tampa Bay, their maturity level is not the same as Toronto. Tampa Bay, you're not going to bait them into penalties. You're just not going to. And yes, it's going to be physical, especially at first. It will calm down later in the series when things are, when you're getting closer to an elimination game. But it's really gonna come down to what can you do as far as forcing to the outside, protecting the middle, because we know Kucherov can find point in the middle at any moment in time, because he's just so deceptive with that snake eye pass too. So that's really what's going to be telling as far as that. I think the Florida Panthers will win the series if penalty kill on the road especially is strong, and getting those high danger chances on Vasilevsky, because if you can, eventually Vasilevsky will break, because I don't think we're going to see under 900 save percentage in the postseason for Vasilevsky. I'm not that ignorant.
No, I agree with you that has been a soft spot for the Lightning all year, has been really the high danger chances. And, that is something that reared its ugly head in recent games where the Lightning were on a little bit of that losing scuff before they picked up that last win of the season against Toronto. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's something that really the Lightning need to clean up. Their defense hasn't really been stellar, except for really the month of March, like I said, in early April. So, being able to do that and turn it back on down low in front of Vazzy, that's going to be something that really, I think, you guys are going to come at the Lightning with very strong, is just trying to get maybe one, maybe even 2 guys down low, especially on power play opportunities. And that's the other thing as well with the special teams. Can the Lightning be able to execute? They've had one of the best, if not the best, power play all year long. So, going up against a team that is historically good on the road with the kill, at home, the Lightning have had their struggles this year where they've completely showed up terribly at home at home games. And that's like a weird thing to say, considering, they're a playoff team. Usually teams that don't play well at home usually don't make the playoffs. But, that's a thing. I think that it scares Lightning fans the most and should probably excite Florida fans the most, is that, we have seen really a Jekyll and Hyde team this year, except for most recently. But you know what? That could all change with a couple of days off. The Lightning are never good with multiple days off. So having, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off and really having to figure it out. And Saturday, trying to go back to 100, it's going to be interesting to see how they pick it back up. Now, The thing that I love, Armando, and that I'm sure you love as well when it comes to playoff time is predictions. I love to throw out the predictions. I don't throw them out as often as I used to because, after a while it loses its luster. But for the Lightning side of things, I am going to say if everything, all the pieces fall into place, like I stated here on this episode with you, I think the Lightning are going to win in 7. I think that as well as the Lightning could potentially show out when all the stars align, you still have a very talented hockey team across from you. I don't think we're going to see anything remotely close, at least on the Lightning side, if they play well right out of the gates to a sweep. I mean, that would be very ignorant. That would be very stupid to even contend with the idea of that happening. Then again, I said the same thing a couple of years ago, and look what happened. Sorry to bring up old ghosts, but I have to. But I say, yeah, Lightning in 7. I think these are going to be all close. I think also at the same time, I think we're going to see a couple of very high scoring games, 5-4, 6-5, maybe even higher. We might see one of those games early on where both teams are just chucking up goals left and right. So for your Panthers, where do you see them now? Obviously, I assume you're going to pick them to win. How long do you see this series going if you guys prevail?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You mentioned the Lightning at home and all. The Panthers 26 road wins this season and 26 home. So even as far as that, the Lightning 20 wins on the road versus 25 at home. So definitely a better home record for them. And based on the Panthers and their ability to win on the road, they've proven that over and over again. I mean, they almost broke the record for most consecutive road wins right before losing against the Carolina Hurricanes. So I think that the Panthers, they're going to find a way to win this series and clinch it on the road, which means I'm not predicting Panthers in 7, obviously. So it also, you talk about the turnaround for the Lightning going Thursday, Friday, Saturday off, and also game 1 being a matinee. So it's going to be like half days there. So it's going to be tough to adjust there, even for both teams, as the Panthers just wrapped up practice today at War Memorial for them, which they were working mostly on their power play. Carter Hagee's back on the power play 1, so that's a great thing for the Panthers. But as far as this series, I do think that the Panthers will win this in 6 games. They'll get this in Amalie Arena. They'll slay. I think they'll slay the dragon. They'll finally get over that hump as far as finally getting over Big Brother, because we spoke about the maturity, we spoke about the style of play, and I think that the factor of Matthew Tkachuk there, it's going to be big, because I mean it's going to be one heck of a battle scene for them. It's like the Panthers are having their Wear Red campaign. It's like Emirates Bank Arena is going to be the scene of Mustafar in Star Wars. So it's going to be a really, really intense, and I think that the Panthers will come out on top on this one. So Panthers in 6, and they'll get it in Amalie Arena to advance to the second round.
All right, it's going to be a fun series. It's going to be a very intense series, and I'm can't wait to see how it shapes up. Well, good luck to you and your team, Armando, and I look forward to possibly talking about a Lightning win when we do our series recap.
No, yeah, I hope to do it. Best of luck to you as well, and you and your coverage, and obviously the back and forth that we will be doing throughout Twitter, and hopefully on the as far as a series recap, hoping it for the Panthers side of things as far as a victory for them. But Adam, let my listeners, let them know where they can follow you and your work online, my friend.
You could follow me on X at DankyDank, DenkyD8NK. If you want to chime in on whether the episodes that we do, you could go ahead and comment below any episode that the really the most recent episode on our YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe so you could get both sides of the coverage. You could also follow our news and coverage of it on our social media pages, LO_Lightning on Twitter, as well as Locked_Lightning on Instagram. Like Armando said, we're not only having a Florida War as our meme from our page dictated, but we're also going to be having meme wars. So make sure to tune in for that. We got some ones locked and loaded for you, and I'm sure Armando does as well. And where can my listeners find you, Armando, and your work?
They can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X as well at LO_FLA Panthers there and on Instagram. And I will be traveling down to every home game. Still waiting to confirm the away games if I will be there covering, but stay tuned for everything in relation to that. So follow me there. And Adam, thank you so much. And we'll be chatting a lot throughout the next 2 weeks. So best of luck to you, my friend.
Best of luck, my friend.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Adam Denker, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.